So, Stefan, you don't know how much excited I am right now. It's like even incredible. And
Mm-hmm.
a very big day for me to speak with you. It's
Mm-hmm.
really a big dream of mine, like for several years, and never expected it will
Mm-hmm.
happen. But I'm very grateful, and I want to do a little introduction right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, hello everyone. We are getting started with this interview, and I'm extremely excited today because I am interviewing one of the most brilliant scientists in the world, in my opinion. Stefan Lanka is a microbiologist and virologist, but not an ordinary virologist that you normally see. And you will understand why in a minute. I want to quickly introduce myself. My name is Kate. I am trained as a naturopath. I am familiar with Stefan's work for many years already. In Russia, I am very well known as the main voice who publicly questioned the existence of SARS-CoV-2 virus. So I questioned all the scientific proofs, and right now I'm almost the only one who does it, sadly. But we will hope it will change. And I have a very popular Instagram and Telegram channels in Russian language that are fully dedicated to disproving virology, the myth of contagion, and educating people about real science and health, because education is the only way out from this situation we find ourselves in today. Approximately 1 week ago, Russian government started to pressure people to get vaccinated to keep their jobs. And even restaurants in Moscow in 4 days from now are planning to allow the enter only to those who got the vaccine or who who has negative COVID test. Right now, a lot of activists, doctors, and scientists are trying to fight this, but I always said that we can fight with the vaccines, masks, lockdowns, and PCR tests as much as we want, but we will not going to arrive anywhere if we will keep not noticing the elephant in the room. And the elephant in the room is the absolute lack of scientific evidence for the existence of SARS-CoV-2 virus. And if there is no scientific proofs for the existence of a virus, the whole idea of vaccination from this virus automatically falls apart. That's why Stefan's work is so amazing, because it disproves the theory on which ideas of vaccination, masks, and lockdowns are built upon, which is the theory that invisible terrorists, such as viruses, exist, cause disease, and are contagious. So, Stefan, could you please tell us your story? How did you become a virologist, and what made you start doubting the existence of viruses?
Yes, thank you very much for your work, for your dedication. On one side, it is hard, I know. On the other side, it's easy. This is a Buddhist saying, you know, the difficult is easy and the easy is difficult. And I think, well, it's not a theory, it's just naming facts. And if you know the real biology, then you know there is no space for something which only takes and it's not giving, and it's hunting us and we are falling prey. This is in real biology, this is just not possible. But I came across all of this when I was not aware how life works, how we get ill, what are the mechanisms, the real mechanism. All what I learned through my study was that all our concepts are wrong. And for a long years, I could not explain what is the real reason of disease. I just said, look, don't believe me, but viruses can't be. And when mothers were asking me, Dr. Lanka, what is then if it's not a virus? I said, I don't know, the models are wrong, be it infectious theory, be it immunological theories, be it something else, genetic explanations, so and so. And only later I became aware that the way we are thinking, the way our society is thinking, the way science is done since 2,500 years, this is forcing us into explanations of materialistic causes of disease, because all our scientific attitude to explain life, disease, and so on is only on the base to explain it by material interactions. There is no consciousness, there is no spirit. This is just not allowed. So everybody knows that a word can kill and that the word can heal. But in science, this is strictly not allowed. And this is already running since 2,500 years. This I did not knew before when I just entering into this field and saw some contradictions. And it all started when I became biologist and not a chemist, because I was taught when I was a youngster of 16 years by a man. He was in charge of the quality of the lake of Constance water here in the village I was born, and now I'm living again. And he told me that life is endangered, and well, the lake can clean itself because the river Rhine goes through and it helps to clean it up again. But all is landing eventually in the seas, in the oceans. And if they are acidifying, then we are risk that we are losing oxygen. 2/3 of the oxygen in our atmosphere is produced by marine algae. Anyway, so therefore I became biologist and marine biologist in order to serve the ocean, to serve life. And because I was scared what I heard and saw about of the sweet water from the Lake Constance, 7 million people are drinking, that it's heavily polluted and that our fish contains such a lot of toxin. It's incredible. Nobody speaks about this. Anyway, so inside marine biology, I came across a marine algae which was not producing spores. Spores we can see in the light microscope easily, which settle down and a new algae is growing out of them. But it was producing much smaller entities, which I could not dissolve in light microscopy. So I went with it into electron microscopy, and I saw all those billions of very small particles, all the size and shape of what we thought are viruses. And with this thing, it all started in the end, because I thought I have a harmless virus, a stable virus-host relationship. I thought, wow, for the first time in biology, we have a structure of virus, harmless virus, not killing its host. Therefore, we can study virology. Where do they originate from, and so on. So I was already done with one leg outside of the thinking. Oh, but inside the paradigm, because I was using the word virus, but a harmless virus. With the other leg, I was still in the mental prison. There must be very dangerous viruses out there. And this was this time when HIV came up and AIDS, that there is a virus causing a deadly immune deficiency. So I was teaching the students at the university as a biologist, as a young student, better to take a double condom than nothing. And then a professor, an Austrian professor, and he helped me to learn more about the nucleic acid in this structure, because he was a specialist on this. He was funding Europe's largest sequencing company, GATC in Constance. And he asked me, when I was entering his lab and distributing information that next week I'm going to give a lecture on HIV and how dangerous it is, he asked me, did I check the evidence? And I said, look, the whole world is saying this. And he said he was not asking the world. And I became red-faced. He gave me a copy card, and he said everything which is of interest, I should copy twice and put it on his table. And the weekend we are going to discuss what we are going to find. And so I entered the field. I saw, well, in HIV, there is in the title, we have a virus, but inside the publication, there was no viral structure, only the belief that when cells are dying in a test tube because they were adding blood or liquid from an infected or an ill person, that when those cells were dying, that there must be a virus inside there. And this I started to question, and it was really hard in the beginning, because I thought, wow, I'm going to lose my lab. I had, in the 5th term, I had my own lab. And so I was afraid, and I thought I have overseen something, and I was really scared to risk my reputation, to risk, wow, probably there's another proof or another, or in the meantime, there's a proof. And I experienced nightmares because I thought, look, probably somebody is coming up with a proof. Or even later, when I was absolutely sure what's going on, even then I thought, wow, they might fabricate some results, as a lot of people are doing. And so they would publish it elsewhere, till I realized it's not possible, because the scientific journals have numbers the whole year. So you are not able to enter something else and say, look, this was the proof. Anyway, so I started to question HIV. In doing so, I kept silence for half a year. And then I was checking other viruses, measles, hepatitis B, AB, and I saw, look, always the same. And this is how I entered the field. And I mean, that was very hard. And in the same time, of course, I was happy to do something meaningful because I saw people are killing themselves with such a diagnosis. And I felt that as a human being and as a scientist, I have to tell them that the test has no validity whatsoever. And so I went all around the world giving lectures, and doing so, I did a big mistake, and this I have to admit. And the mistake in my work was that I believed that it was a bad intention of Gallo, who was the inventor of the idea there's a deadly immunodeficiency virus. And because I came across the notion that it was published in the Chicago Tribune, that he was manipulating his cell cultures, he was adding substances to kill them, hydrocortisone. And I thought, well, when it is published that he betrayed, so the politic must know this, that it is betrayal. And so it was sure it's betrayal. And even the person in my village who realized how many toxins are in the water, he was suppressed by politicians not to speak out in order to be allowed to continue his work even after retirement. So they didn't kept word with this man, politics, and he really suffered about this misery, this researcher from Lanka Wanka. And so as a youngster already, I thought, wow, there is betrayal. And I transferred this kind of thinking in science. When Gallo was manipulating, then it's all betrayal. And that was a big mistake. I wrote books like AIDS, The Betrayal, and things like this. But in the end, I realized that it's not intentional betraying, because in our thinking to explain diseases, we have only materialistic explanations. And I learned that Gallo, his younger sister, died of leukemia, and he freaked out. And so he became the director of the National Institute of Cancer in the United States in order to fight off the viruses which seemingly killed his sister. So he was driven by this. And of course, in the end, Gallo didn't receive the Nobel Prize because it became public. And Luc Montagnier from Paris, he received the Nobel Prize for HIV in 2008. And he, in 83, kept saying, look, if it's true that I really found a virus, it's causing the cells to multiply themselves. So people affected, they would have an immunological overload, but even so, this would be only one of thousands cofactors which they suffer from. And if they would stop to swallow, to inhale their sexual drugs, amyl nitrite, butyl nitrite, they would get healthy. And if they would continue to eat good, drinking pure water, having their vitamins, he kept saying then and now that even not only getting healthy, they would kick out the virus out of their body. Therefore, Montagnier always was hated. But it is a fact that he received the Nobel Prize in 2008 for HIV with a completely different kind of notion. And this, for me, was the proof there is betrayal going on. But it isn't. It's our whole society. And in the end, I found out it's not Robert Koch, it was not Pasteur, it was not Virchow, all those people in the history who set the stage for what's happening now in detail. The greater stage was set in Greece some 2,500 years ago. And this is in the end what's happening, that our self-consciousness as a modern Western society, it's based on a scientific concept which is erroneous. That's for the one being in charge, doing the job, and believing that as a medical doctor, they're doing all the best, vaccinate. This is absolutely challenging, because if you are doing something and if you identify yourself with something and this is questioned, this is automatically driving you aggressive, and it's driving you mad when your own identity is touched. But on the other side, it's a very good notion, a very good thing to discover that the framework was wrong, because we have with this the basis to leave all this dualistic good bad notion in science, in biology, in medicine, but also in society behind us. And there is a much deeper understanding of life, of individuality, of how groups are interacting. And this is waiting to realize. And Corona as the first global dogma, this is the point, the turning point in history where humankind is learning and is able to get all these good, bad notions to leave it behind for a better understanding.
That's what I see also, not only among the scientific community, but also ordinary people. They got so used to the idea that viruses and also like pathogenic bacteria and something makes them sick. So it became like a habit or something like this, because otherwise they will have to admit many things. They will have to take responsibility. So they cannot put the responsibility on viruses or on bacteria if they understand the real mechanism, how disease work. So that's why many people, they also, when you start talking with them about it, they start to close their ears. Yeah, because they understand that if they will accept all of these, that viruses do not exist, they will have to take a lot of responsibility. And all what Louis Pasteur did, he was like one of the main persons who popularized like in these ideas of contagion. He did it so people now have this excuse to put all the responsibility to the germs, on the germs. And this is one of the obstacles also, yeah, because to understand how disease works, of course, you need to take responsibility. You need to take responsibility for people you are surrounded with, like, what is your job? What is your, do you follow your dreams or not? What do you eat? Like everything, this is health. This is what health is, like the, so for people, it is very hard, but like, just like you said, Corona forced many people were forced to drop this idea that something else is responsible for their health, not them, because germs are like scapegoat. This is what they are. To summarize what you just said, so first you discovered yourself. That's what you got your PhD for. You discovered a so-called harmless virus in algae. And this, but it was not a virus, it is a mini spore, and it is a very meaningful function for the algae, very helpful function. So, but the thing was that you did this procedure. So you isolated and you had the biological structure. That's what you had. And when you looked in the papers, you found out that they do not even find any biological structure. So
Mhm.
there is no biological structure in the paper, but in the title they say it is so.
Yes.
So, and then you understood that it's fundamentally wrong. Then it brings me to the question of how disease is happening. What is your opinion? What is disease? How disease is happening? And what happens when several people get sick at the same time? What is it like? Because people, when you explain all of this to them, and they understand, the question that I get all the time is, why did I got sick with my husband and everyone else?
Yeah, thank you very much for summarizing. And I may add the important thing that I had the luck to be at a University of Constance, where there has not been a virology before. So the professors guiding me, observing me, and keeping an eye during my diploma thesis and then my PhD, they were really afraid that I could have an artifact and that would not materialize. So I had to work in a very strict scientific way. I had always to carry out control experiments, right? So I did every step in parallel with algae, not showing those symptoms. And I tried all steps of isolation with non-infected material as well, in order to prevent self-fooling, right? So, and especially the marine biologist, he was a very strict scientist, and everything had to be controlled, every step had to be proven, and this helped me. And to be sure, well, I have a substance, a structure, and I can not only see it in electron microscope just when I've isolated it. I saw it already in the algae itself when it was produced, and I learned that all pictures of all viruses were only in cell tubes, in the test tubes in the lab, but never in a liquid of a person, in blood or in a tissue, in a lymph node or something else. And it's incredible. We are wearing masks, but it was never ever possible to visualize a virus out of the salvia. We should keep distance, and this is very striking. So everybody can see this in any case of viruses, be it HIV or SARS or measles virus or hepatitis. All those photos are only in test tubes, never in blood, never in a human being, never in an animal. And this is just incredible. And so for me, it was clear, wow, I see something in the algae and I see the same structure I could isolate, to make it really clean. And then I understood that, of course, where this thinking came from later, and being in my way to understand where the thinking arose that there must be a virus. I was already on my track to understand deeper what's life and what is disease, And when you want to understand what is causing disease, first you have to get rid of your old notions. Then it makes you open and free for other observations. And so this is what I was forced into control experiments, and were happy to be guided by a strict scientist. So, and then later, only after my studies, I realized that there was a virology before 1952. And in this time, a virus was a toxin, like Latin toxin of disease virus, in Latin virus. And a virus was defined as a protein which is toxic, which with the ability of self-replication. And this idea was given up till the year 52 because they carried out control experiments, and they realized if they let healthy tissue into decay as well, they'll get the same proteins like when diseased, infected material was going into decay. And so they gave up themselves the notion. And this was also the time when they realized, wow, a protein, it's not able to replicate on its own. It always needs a little bit of nucleic acid. And from this time on, this was exactly in 52, it was clear, for them, the nucleic acid is the genetic material of life, which is needed to produce a protein. So from this time on, they knew, viruses are different, and the model what they had, those were the bacteriophages, the mini spores of bacteria. When bacteria have no time to build really spores, which when they try out, when they lose their nutrition and they have time, so they are building really spores. And if the nutrition comes back, the spores are quickly building new bacteria. So, but if bacteria have no time to build those spores, bacterial spores, they build mini spores. And those mini spores have the ability to develop into bacteria again. And this was not thinkable at this time, but is now known in the cases of such phage-like structures. I isolated the first time out of the sea 30 years ago. And my algae, not my algae, but this algae, when the water is too cold and too hot, it's not building its spores, it builds such mini spores, and they even can be taken up by existing spores, and they even can build up their metabolism inside their self. And this is known under the topic of giant viruses. So some virologists in France, in Marseille, they are fighting that in biology, science is acknowledging that we have the fourth Reich of life beside archaebacteria, bacteria, eukaryotic cells, now the kingdom of giant viruses. Still, they keep the word viruses because they say, look, they are realizing a metabolism and getting bigger, and adding up more and more nucleic acid. So it's clear that our nucleus in our tissue, that those structures are the precursors, right? So in virology, there was the notion from 52 on, wow, we have phages, and those are the viruses of bacteria. Bacteriophage from phagocytosis, they are going to eat up the bacteria. And from this time on, they orientated themselves and thought, well, if tissue in the test tubes are dying, so they transform their cells, like bacteria, into viruses. But this is not the case. They just thought it, and later on they were not thinking about why we cannot easily isolate our viruses, like bacteriophages or like the giant viruses. So from the very beginning on, they just built it out of certain molecules, mentally a model of a virus, which as a whole thing never existed. So this is to get how the switch from old virology to the new virology happened. 52, the old virology was ended, and 54, a bacteriologist said, look, if we are not knowing how viruses look like, the old model has failed, was abandoned. So at least if we can multiply viruses, then we can start to study in future the viruses which they should be there. They needed them. And so they came up with the idea, when we are using cells, tissue of animals or human beings, and then add some seemingly infected material, and if those cells are dying, they would probably transform themselves in bacteria, as bacteria would do, into phages. So, but they never controlled their doing. And without knowing and without intention, they just intoxicated their cells in the test tube with very dangerous antibiotics, streptomycin, nowadays it's neomycin, and they were reducing the nutrition. So in order that the cell is getting hungry for the virus and so, and not knowing, they are inducing the dying of the cells on their own. And so they were confusing themselves just in order to have the same explanation of diseases which are happening one after each other, or in the same moment, in a family, in a classroom, in a country, you know, in autumn or springtime, when more people become ill at the same time. And our materialistic thinking needs a materialistic explanation. So, and I came across a medical doctor, a German medical doctor, in the year 2000, when I was surfing in the alternative cancer scene. And then I realized, look, they were using the same concept and inducing fear in the people. But then they said, look, let's fight softly. Let's fight with natural means, with herbs, with extracts and so on. But let's fight. But this doesn't work when a person is believing the devil is inside himself, that the molecules make, they unite themselves in order to fight their own body, get stronger than the own body, and then even would move inside the body. This idea is called metastasis. Then of course they are a victim that when you're believing in metastasis, you're also believing in flying metastasis. And the real existing pain and suffering and dying of people with cancer diagnosis is then creates the notion, this is the proof that the disease is so bad, is so vicious, it's so strong, and the bad exists, the devil exists. But it's a circular argumentation. And I was in the alternative field, realizing the circular argumentation. And I was really fed up because somebody asked me if I could help his mother. And I asked my bosses, I said, look, she had this diagnosis and this, I'm new in the field, what to do? Yeah, give her into this clinic. And it cost him a fortune, and they did only stupid thing. And so I went there at the weekend to check what's going on. So I had the luck that there was a Polish medical doctor. He was fed up because he was working there for 5 years, not entering into the group of medical doctors at the clinic. And after time, we became, he told me what's happening in the clinic. In reality, they had even no lab. They claim they do their histology on their own. They say we have the best results, everything is documented. Nothing of this kind. And this should be the best cancer clinic in Europe. So then I was ringing this German medical doctor who at this time lived in Spain. And I came across his findings 5 years ago, but I thought myself, it's not that easy, and it can't be that easy. And I was not digging it. And at this time, when I was seeing that at this clinic, the best cancer clinic in Europe, they are doing, they are cheating. Then I rang this Dr. Hammer in Spain. I said, look, can you help me? I have this diagnosis, and they say this lady is going to die. And since 6 years, she's under heavy chemotherapy. After 2 years, she's abandoning. Then the hair comes back, and so all of them. It was a nice, fine Italian lady. They said her name was La Rocca, the stone, because she was so strong, not losing teeth, and hair came back. But then after 2 years, the doctor said, no, you have to use chemo. And so it was after 6 years. And Dr. Hammer told me it's 100% a wrong, false diagnosis. And I said, hey, 100% for 6 years of chemotherapy and suffering. This is a hard work. That can't be. How could I check that it's a wrong diagnosis? And he said, look, go into the books of histology, and then you will see that there are no tissue cells around this place where she had the tumor. So this is a completely misdiagnosis. But what she has in reality. And he said, look, it must be like this and this. By the way, I would like to invite you, because I heard from you, and my notion is that all microbes have a positive attitude in life. There are no bad and only good microbes. And viruses I do have in my system, they would help to fill up tissues after there was an ulceration before. And if they are not there, then I had to skip this out of my textbooks because this would be wrong. So please, it is possible that you visit me. I pay you the trip and hotel and everything. Whereas the medical doctors in the alternative AIDS scene, I had to pay huge sums for the diagnosis and to get treatment options and so on. So I ran into Hammer, and eventually I had a brain scan, X-ray brain scan called computer tomography of my own brain and that of other persons. He could not know. And he diagnosed perfectly what kind of symptoms I have now at the moment. And even what kind of symptoms I healed out in my past and when, which years. and what kind of activities are going on in my body, and which cause, when I'm solving the causes, some traumata, what is going to happen with me in future. And from this moment on, I could throw my scientific anchor and to answer all the questions which I could not answer over more than 10 years, right? So this was a revelation for me, and it would answer most of the questions to me. And I immediately understood also what is going on in the brain, that you get specific signals showing that you are suffering this or that, and which part of body, and even in your mind. And this is what I think is the most important thing, that it explains yourself, how you are working, how your mind, how your perception, how your behavior could alterate so much that you are not objective anymore. And when you understand yourself, you are not forced to judge on somebody else who is behaving strange or aggressive or doing something, because he has his own causes, which you know and you can talk about, and you can resolve it. And this is of greatest importance. And to conclude this at the moment, it is after 2,500 years of medicine and of biology in a good-bad system, this is the first human being in our known history, Western history, he got rid of the notion of a bad in biology. And that's just fantastic. And I mean, it was Plato who for 2,400 years ago, he wrote that the Greek medical doctors can't cope with the majority of diseases, because if something is going on with the eye or with the bone, they would treat the organ. But he wrote, they forgot that everything coming out of the soul, and that when you are ill, that you have to treat the soul first. And he wrote that there were two medical systems. One for the unfree, where symptoms are suppressed with medication, and the medicine for the free, where the soul is treated, where the causes are there. And the causes are traumata, which are defined as a biological conflict, because traumata is used by everybody, and you cannot use it anymore in a scientific way. So he defined a trauma which is causing the processes as a biological conflict. It happened unexpected. It's an overload. It hits you existentially. You can't survive possibly in this lasting, if this is going to last long, and it isolates you from the environment. And this moment when this feeling goes on in you, this is leading to the process we call disease. And if you can solve the trauma, the biological conflict, in fact, that you will get another child when someone was lost, or you get another job, you get back your territory, your job, you get away, you get rid of an angel, then in the same time, your stress, your constant stress feeling, cold hand and leg, it's over. And then what happened in the first phase is replaced in the second phase. So he learned that two diseases in Western medicine are belonging to one program. When, for example, tumor is built in the healing process, the tumor is digested. Or when the bone is auto-digesting itself, which stays for the self-confidence, in the healing phase, it's rebuilt. So they belong together, and he is not using the term disease anymore. He found out this is a meaningful biological process, and this is his attitude seeing this. And if it lasts only for weeks or short months, nothing is going to happen in the healing process. And an animal hit by such a biological effect would never go back into the same field, right? But we as human beings, not aware of what's going on and being forced to stay in a company. We have contracts, we have to pay the debts, probably we are in a happy relationship and can't escape and can't go out of the field. And so those processes lasting for months or years, and then the healing process as well is lasting months or years. And even when they were added up, several processes in one time, this may be an overload, and then we of course need emergency medicine. And of course, when a tumor is too big, we have to operate it, but not to radiate the whole body or to chemotherapy the whole body. And this is a completely different side to life. And therefore, there are a lot of terms for his findings: the new medicine, then the German new medicine, or the 5 biological laws. And I don't like so much these terms, because laws a human being is doing, a society is having its own laws. But I would say biology after Hamer. And this has a double meaning. He passed away 3 years ago. So his name is honored for this very important finding. And on the other side, the biology after him, it's not the same. We have no good, bad thing in biology. It's always symbiosis, and the processes going on. They always try to help you even to survive in extreme situations when they are lasting.
Yes, thank you, Stefan. It was very, very clear. I also discovered Hamer's work, I think, around, it was not long ago, it was the whole COVID thing started. And like I was so fascinated because it actually is, why it is so amazing, because it teaches you what I always felt in my heart, that health is a happiness, and you cannot stay in conflicts, you cannot stay feeling miserable, you cannot stay feeling with some toxic people or in some unresolved conflict or even traumas, and expect health and all of this, and it motivates you to change your life. So this was amazing. Like it is, because even as a naturopath, it's not so much about some changes like in your life. It's about just take these herbs, take these vitamins, just take these. And yes, if you are more advanced, you just say change your lifestyle, change what you eat, maybe you start exercising. But this is revolutionary because it tells you like change what you do, change change everything that creates conflict for you. So like if you understand this and you start to change, and your life becomes so much better. And this is what for me is so amazing about this. Also, Dr. Hamer, he said that respiratory diseases happens when the tumor, for example, in the lungs. So when you feel you have a conflict and you are scared, so a conflict of death, so you're afraid for your life or for someone else's life, you start to grow extra lung cells because you need to use more oxygen than when you are in a normal state. And what we see as a respiratory diseases is normally when our bacteria, it digests this excess lung cells, and we expel these cells and the byproducts of these bacteria. We expel them out. This is the mucus and also the fever. All of this is actually the process of tumor digesting. So do you think that in this COVID situation, what actually triggered illnesses in many people, like respiratory illnesses? Because a lot of people actually, they say this year I got sick and it was not something normal. It was not normal. It was more difficult to go through this. It was so they can say they felt it, and I started to think that it is because they were so scared. So they were scared with the terrorists, and they lived under this stress for several months. For one person can be enough, only 1 month, for even 1 year for another person, because people are different. So then they start this healing crisis, and this is what actually created the COVID thing. And people who started all of this, they actually no, I think they know about Hammer's work, and they know that it's enough. Actually, it's enough only just, as you said, word can kill and word can heal. So it's enough. It's just, you don't need anything. You don't need even like, if they could create, they cannot, of course, but if they could create some virus in a laboratory, they would never do this, because they know that it's enough only to say, to come out and say that there is a virus and it is dangerous and will kill all of you. So do you think that this is what is actually triggers all these pneumonias and respiratory conditions?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Hammer found out that we have several conditions which are causing respiratory problem. The one is when we are thinking that we can't breathe and we will die of a lack of air, of respiration, then we'll get lung cancer, right? This is one thing. Another thing is then when we get a traumata that we cannot feed our family, for example, then you will see a signal here on the right cortex here. And this is ulcerating the mucus of the bronchus and or the muscles, you know. This is a male aspect. And in the healing process, you have bronchitis. And if the whole lung is affected, this is called a lung pneumonia, right? And with this, it all started. SARS is defined as a sudden onset of respiratory symptoms. And it's a syndrome. So you may add a lot of things. It is even asthma. If this structure, esophagus, is affected, then if this is affected, you will see a signal in the brain here. This is when you were not fed, when you thought that you cannot get something. This is not only air, you know, but it's also the feeling that you are not getting nutrition, you know. And when this is resolved, you have problems. You have an aching here. Then you could have something what we call Scharlach in German, you know, when the mouth and the esophagus is affected, it's ulcerating and then healing. So all those symptoms have their causes, you know, and this is exactly what's going on. It's absolutely sure. All those people you see in the vaccination centers doing their selfies, right, and being happy, crying tears, finally vaccinated, and now I'm sure I'm secure again. And when they are going into the healing process with this, because they feel sure, you know, then they are going, depending on what kind of tissue defected, in certain days or at least in 3 weeks, they are going to develop the symptoms. And then this is it, what when the symptoms are lasting, then this is called the long COVID, right? Or a flu, which is strong and you can get not rid of the flu. So the symptoms of the flu and now are the same, but we term it in a different way, you know. And for example, when now it's said, well, we have a wonderful vaccination, and now everybody it's healthy, then you can really predict that in 3 weeks, some people are developing bronchitis. This is when it starts with the esophagus. It would be quicker, those symptoms, and you will really see an onset of symptoms, right? And from this perspective of the real biology, there you are not afraid. And if it's getting too dangerous, the situation, then you can get the appropriate treatment to suppress the symptoms so that you can survive the healing phase in case it's extreme, right? And this is it, what society it's not understanding at the moment. But on the other side, the contradictions are so growing big, and that people are realizing that the so-called side effects of the vaccination are much stronger than everything experienced before. And this is leading eventually the people to think what is going on. And thanks God to the internet, the information is spreading. And sooner or later, our control experiments are going to be published, showing that when using the cells in the test tube in exactly the same way biologists are doing, we get with purely uninfected material, we'll get exactly the same results than virologists. And this process is going on, you know, and it's going slowly. And it's for one reason, it's good that it's going slowly, because if you take away the people's belief system and they have no understanding what's going on, this is dangerous. They would freak out. And all those people who identify themselves with a strong state, that mother state is regulating, it's giving me food and protecting me from the bad, and so on and so on. And the stronger a government system is with its people, the more they believe in causes outside themselves, right? And this is in the so-called socialistic countries or pre-socialistic countries, or even people who are left. This is what I experienced when I was a young student. I tried to explain it at the university. I ran into every professor. And they said, look, yeah, very interesting, but keep silence because it's not good for our reputation. We'll lose money for research. And so I went to the groups, the student groups who had the right to give their own talks and into the rooms at the university, and asked them, please offer me some space. I have important news on HIV and AIDS. They won't. And believe it or not, the first talk at the University of Constance, and my first talk on HIV and AIDS, it was organized by the German-Turkish Friendship Organization at the University of Constance. But the leftists, they didn't, because they had the notion, we need a strong state. The state is doing everything. I mean, this is the socialist notion. And when you feel like a victim, then you are attracted by this system, because the state is organizing everything for you. And so, look, even from a poor family, I can study and I can develop the vaccine against stupidity. Or my daughter can also study and get the Nobel Prize for to find the gene, the genetic material, the gene against hunger in the world. And so this is the notion that with technique we can resolve everything, you know. And the responsibility is at the state. And this works since the time that medicine and science was united by the states. And this went on from Germany in the year 1858 by Rudolf Virchow. He said state and science had to become one in order to protect the head of the state, the king, because life works at the state. There are single individuals, and some of them, they again became parasitic, especially the one of a different kind of, a certain kind of race, right? And the same thing is happening in the body, that the body, it's built up out of cells, the smallest indivisible units of life, the cells. And some of them became parasitic and have to be killed, you know, in order that they are not endangering the head. And this was established by Virchow for given reasons. But since this time, medicine and science is one with the state, and everything what you put onto the state, it's directed against you own. I mean, this has been realized by a lot of researchers in the whole his history, especially by Ivan Illich, a great Croatian thinker, Ivan Illich. He wrote in 76 his book, his famous book, The Nemesis of Medicine. And there he showed when medicine is part of economy and forced to produce 5% more interest every year, then of course they have to exaggerate. And he has foreseen Corona. He has seen they are going to exaggerate every year. So fever then has to become treated with medications with 41 degree, then with 40, then with 39. Nowadays you have to treat mothers when their children have a 37.8 degree. The mothers freak out because they think that the baby is going to die, right? And this was described by Illich in great detail. And he said they are going to exaggerate because they have to exaggerate in our money system, right? And then eventually with antibiotics, they are going to kill everything. The land, the plants, the animals, and human beings themselves. This is what he predicted in 76, what is going to happen, because they are forced to exaggerate. And I published this in 11 years ago, when I was able to contribute that the swine flu in 2009 all of a sudden was stopped, and 93% of the population stopped using the vaccine because they were aware, wow, there are new adjuvants inside, nanoparticles, which are very toxic, which were never examined before. And together with the information that the German government and the German army would get the vaccine without adjuvants, without nanoparticles. Whereas in all textbooks, it is written a vaccine, the piece of the virus or the living virus needs an adjuvant to be presented to the immune system for weeks and months so that it can be detected at foreign, and the anti-poison for the poison of disease, the antibodies are produced, right? So this notion was leading with other things to the fact that 93% of the population was refusing to taking this vaccine. And they had to burn all those millions of vaccine shots, they had to burn them, right? And a year later, in December 2010, the whole issue of the magazine of health of the Federal Institute of Health, the Ministry of Federal Health, they are publishing a monthly magazine, the Bundesgesundheitsblatt, and the issue 12 of 2010 is Pandemia Lessons Learned. And they analyzed what the hell happened that the people were refusing the vaccines. And they realized, well, we had a lot of specialists, discussing in public, criticizing themselves. And so this is not happening in future. There is only one view presented and one scientist, and this is not going to happen, that the differences are taken out in public. And eventually, misinformation on the internet was leading to the fact that the people refused the vaccine. Therefore, we have to apply censorship on the internet, and we have to deal it with the big internet organizations. I mean, that censorship. In the constitution, it's written there is no censorship. So the state asked those companies to censor information, whereas in the constitution, censorship is forbidden. And this was published in December 2010. And so I wrote in January 2011, I said, look, the next pandemic to come, it's much difficult for us to put these things to the public. But the slower, the better, the more efficient, because the body of knowledge is going to grow in the population. And one practical aspect for you, for your work, for your very important work, what you are doing, I love the Russian mentality. I mean, my father is from Czechoslovakia, from Slovakia. And I always thought, wow, the Slovaks are, really strong. And then I met Polish people in 86. And I learned, wow, they are even more funnier, right? Then, of course, I realized they were always in the history between Russian and Germans, And then I was in Russia. I was several weeks in Russia in various areas. I learned people with such a great heart, such a great soul. Then I was reading the Russian, authors, and there's such a big soul. And I think this soul is waiting for this information fitting to the soul, right? If you have a big soul, you need the information to see how the soul is acting. So I'm really happy that we are talking with each other now, and hopefully in future. But my recommendation is not to overload people not knowing anything. You can just say one word, okay, I have a different point of view, and that's it. And then you stay attractive. When they want to have something with you, they have to ask you. So because if somebody is not open because he himself is identifying himself, then it's difficult. But when the person is in a way to ask himself because he has time and it's not pressed, that's much better. That's my experience. So sometimes less is more.
So yes, Stefan, you are right about Russian people. They when I started, so I'm only 24 years old, and I'm not I don't have a look of a scientist. Obviously, I look like a girl, like ordinary girl. And but when I started, so I actually started to do all of this in August 2020, because I was seeing what is happening. I also understood I have conflict because I know all of this. I already read a lot of your work, a lot of your articles, and I watched a lot of videos and about measles trial, and I understood, like, for more than I think 6 years, I understood that actually viruses do not exist, and contagion doesn't exist, and I lived like this. And also when I worked with patients, like I worked from this point of view with them. So when all of this started, I was feeling so bad because I could not talk with people around me about this, because like unfortunately people around me were very close-minded. So I started to write about it on Instagram. That's what I started to do. And I was amazed how fast and how many people were interested in what I do and what I write. And nothing mattered, like how I look did not matter. Maybe I do not speak like a scientist, like a professional. This all did not matter. People feel where is the truth, and they follow the truth, and they are really so fed up with all the lies and fear. And this corona, I think it was for many people was the point when it was enough, and when they saw this through, so it was immediate decision for them to start to learn. Yes. So and what I do actually, because it is a very big interest of mine, this topic, and I understand how ordinary people just like me, how to explain to them so they understand very quickly and easily. Like, so I always think, how can for example, my grandmother, so I always imagine her, how I can explain to her so she understands very fast. So that's what I do, and that's why I think what I did was so also successful, because it was very simple. I could explain in a simple way about the viral isolation and everything. But Russian people are really very perspective. They are very open-minded, and they are they want to learn about it. So I think it's a good place to do the work and to translate your videos. So it's very well received. That's why I wanted to introduce you to Russian audience, because it's time. It's really time, and it will be very very successful. And also, what else I wanted to say? Yes, so we were talking about the vaccine, and I had a lot of questions about the vaccine. So something I could not understand, and many people asked me also. So if I can ask you, so the vaccine that is presented to us, it is presented as a gene therapy. And they say this theory that mRNA in the vaccine, it will go into ribosomes, it will turn into spike protein, and you will create all the spikes, and then vaccinated people, they go around and they transmit all these spikes and everything. And I already understood, I researched, and I understood that it is not the case, actually. Even with the gene therapy, it's not so, it's not the case. So could you please tell us more about vaccine and the mechanism and what it really does to the body?
So thank you very much. The principle of a vaccine is having a piece of a virus or the living virus, injecting it into the body, and then the body immune system is realizing that is something foreign and building the antitoxin, the antibody to the virus, and therefore then you are protected or you are healing. That's the idea: poison and anti-poison. And the basis of it is it's a known fact that if you taking a high amount of poison, you would kill yourself. For example, a youngster of 14 years drinking a liter of vodka, he would die if you not pump the alcohol out of his stomach. Whereas Yeltsin, your President Yeltsin, he needed 2 liters of vodka before he could speak in front of the parliament. Everybody knew it, but not because he had an antitoxin to alcohol, but he had a lot of enzymes because he got used to drink alcohol. And all kind of toxins, if you enter them in low amounts and increasing them by time, your body is learning to deal with it, and you are not dying, okay? That's very important. And therefore we thought, there's the antitoxin. And for example, when somebody was in the healing crisis, epilepsy or something else, fever, psychosis, like our Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, then there was the bloodletting in the belief, we get rid of the toxin of disease, the virus. But Wolfgang Amadeus was dying with too less blood in such a bloodletting moment when he was in a healing crisis, right? So therefore we are vaccinating, and the new idea is, wow, we are presenting genetic material, be it DNA, like in the Russian vector vaccine, or like mRNA, the more modern ones, you know, and this is entering the cells, and then the cells taking it up, saying, hello, genetic material, I was waiting for you. I'm going to build the protein encoded in this genetic material, be it DNA or RNA. And then I'm going to release the protein inside the cell, inside the body, and then the body is realizing, oh, this is fun, and making this thing. This is the idea behind the whole thing, you know. So, but I came across the information that the German company CureVac, who last year received 300 million euro in order to continue their research, they realized, and they have the highest ethics with all those companies, therefore they are still not selling a vaccine, because they saw some contradictions. And they really are concerned, and they did in 2013 and till 2016, they did an experimental RNA vaccine for rabies in human in the city of Munich, Germany. And then they realized, when they just injecting the naked RNA in the arm like a normal shot, a normal vaccine shot, nothing is happening. This I don't know before. Nothing happens. And then they started to realize, only when they inject it beyond the skin, then they have severe inflammation, which they equal with, severe immune reactions, right? So they realized, wow, if we put it beyond the skin, then they have a high amount of reaction. And that was their strategy. They said, look, we are able to produce very pure RNA because we synthesize RNA in a blotter, whereas all the others, they are forcing bacteria or yeast to produce this RNA. So this is always impure. And CureVac said, no, we are producing pure. So we have, it takes longer. We need less RNA. And first they tried without adjuvants, and they realized, oh, it's not possible. And therefore, they did more research, and all the others did not research. BioNTech, for example, they always experimented on a vaccine against cancer, an individualized vaccine, but it never materialized, nothing happened. And the company was already at a minus $280 million debts. And this was, the owner was forced to leave this field without success, and he jumped on 20th of January last year, he jumped on this new field, even though no information on the virus was published, what kind, the sequence, blah, 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 this only came later. But he was said, oh, this is going to be a big thing, and he jumped on this in order to survive. And this is what the people are not aware of. They think really that gene technique works. I mean, there's a German newspaper, Die Zeit, a weekly magazine, and the title is Erbgut in Auflösung. That means genetic material in dissolution. And if you read this, and I really recommend you to present this, translate it into Russian, to offer it to your readers, then you will see that the concept of a genetic material was falsified already from the year 2000. And I knew it already by the end of my studies in 94. So the concept that we have a static genetic material is completely rotten. Every cell, every nucleus, the cell concept, even it's to be questioned, every nucleus has its own genetic material, right? And therefore, the notion, one function, one protein, one genetic material, one gene, that's completely falsified, completely. But in biology, we still have the notion, and we continue, as would it be, that we can read a gene, that we can multiply one. So the whole concept, it's rotten, right? So it can't possibly work, right? So it means first, the virus must exist. Then there should be a spike protein. Whereas we have a similar protein to the spike protein, this is expressed, built in all parts of the body, especially in pregnant women. At the placenta, we have the highest load of this protein. So this is there. And now they say, we look for the spike protein, and yeah, we find it here and there. No, it was there before. They came to the idea to say that is, we use this as an idea, as a spike protein in the virus. It has been there forever. So, but now the notion is, okay, RNA or DNA goes into the cell, producing the protein, the spike protein. The spike protein is leaving the cell and entering the body. The immune system is recognizing it as foreign and producing the antibodies. But the critics now say, look, the genetic material is entering the endothelial cells, the lining of our vessels, and producing the spike proteins there and everywhere. And when we get a harmless coronavirus, then the spike protein is attacked, and automatically your own body, your own blood system is going to be attacked, and then you are going to die in 1 or 3 years. And I mean, people are believing this as well. And especially people being already critical of what's going on, seeing contradictions in all levels of the thing, that the symptoms were mild, and, that the numbers were so low as never before. And those people are suffering the most, the ones already questioning the things, but then being not able to prevent that their partner, their husbands or wives or adult children got vaccinated themselves. And so they could not prevent it. And they are in extreme panic. They will really get ill, extremely ill. And with this fear, which is induced by the critics, saying, oh, this vaccine is so dangerous. And it's the funny thing that this is by a Canadian scientist, and he's supported by Malone, Professor Malone, and he's head of the Salk Institute. But Salk always had been a scientific outsider, because he was stealing the idea of Enders, John Franklin Enders, the one who came up with the idea in 1954. Oh, when cells are dying, there may be a virus, because he had the idea that viruses can also grow in other material than they would damage. And this idea was stolen by Jonas Salk. Everybody knew inside the scene, and he did quickly a polio vaccine, and claiming in the New York Times, well, it's safe. I did carried out, studied, nothing of this sort, And since this time, the Salk Institute is in the scientific community absolutely isolated for really given reasons, right? And those people now use the fear to show up and to sell their own products, and the critics using the same argumentation mirror-wise in the same system of explanation. And therefore, there's incredible fear. And the really dangerous, the nanoparticles, what they say, oh, these are the lipid carriers. Nothing is carried, nothing. This is just a claim. Those nanoparticles, like every nanoparticles, are so highly toxic. They have such a big surface compared to their volume that they are catalytic. They are doing all kinds of reactions, and they are causing constant inflammation. It's really different for the body to get rid of them. And you may be happy if they will stick here in the muscle for a long time, not leaving quickly, because this is going to cause thrombosis, or if it goes with the nerve up to the brain, then your brain is swollen, and you are dying of brain pressure and things like this. So
I'm
this
sorry. Yeah, my dogs, did you hear them? They woke up and started to fight. Yeah, I'm sorry for this. For my yeah, so continue, please.
You should see Dean's dogs. He has 2 of them, and they are really big, and when they make noise, that's the end of the transmission, right?
Mine are small, but they are loud enough. They are like, when they fight, it's scary, but I don't know what happened. It's like...
Yeah, but this is in humans and animals, the smaller, the more dangerous they are. This is really true. Anyway, okay. So this is what is going on in the field, and the nanoparticles, they are not discussed, and they are just, and even the company BioNTech is claiming, no, we have no adjuvants. No, it's our carrier system. And in the control studies, in the placebo studies, those nanoparticles have been present in the placebo group. So they have on both sides severe reactions, but they said, look, this is just what's happening normally in the population. Our medical substance is not inside the placebo group. So, they are fooling themselves and the public. And so when they went now into the general public with this vaccine, they are causing severe effects, especially in disabled people, ill people, old people, because you need energy to keep a toxin isolated and where it stays. Therefore, when you get tattooed, the stain is mixed with toxins, with mercury, right? If not, the stain would dissolve quickly and your tattoo would look ugly in several months, you know. Therefore, in all tattoos in the stain, it's mercury inside. Even so, there's mercury in every lymph node around the tattoo. You see the stain. Slowly but surely, it's migrating. And this is what's going on with the nanoparticle as well. And happy you, when it stays there, you'll get a local inflammation, a lot of blood. It's there, the blood, it's dissolved as well. You see a really dark spot, and where a lot of blood is, then you have a lot of iron, and easily you could magnetize it. And this is the explanation why magnets are there. But still in the alternative scene, no, they are injecting us magnetized nanoparticles. No, because then you would get the magnet stick to the syringe with the vaccine. And this is definitely not the case, right? So there's a lot of fear. And I think the general recommendation is when somebody is inducing fear with no way out, fear, it's helpful when the danger is real. A quick car, you know, hot thing for the children, and etc. Right? And wild animal which is hungry, right? So anyway, their fear is justified, but an unjustifiable fear without resolution always has to be questions. And in most cases, you'll find the argument is wrong. So a fear without a way out for yourself, that very often it's a wrong explanation, mirror-wise in our same system of explanation.
So you say that there is no way for this vaccine, because a lot of people worry about this, if someone has to do or has done this. And I received a lot of questions, and unfortunately I was someone who believed it can change. I didn't know about all of this. I read your article, that's what I did. And I started to understand that it's not the case. It's probably is not changing the DNA. And also because in Russia, the fear of vaccinated being dangerous is very, very high, unfortunately. And that's why I wanted to ask more about it, because people that got the vaccine, so they do not transmit any spike protein because it's
no.
Yes, but there is a study, you know the study that they looked for the spike protein in nurses. It's from Harvard and another also. So, but it was they found what always was present anyway.
Yeah,
I think.
And
they used like antibodies to detect it. That's what they use. They did not purify the protein from the blood.
No.
That's what I saw, that they use antibodies, and I already understood that when they do this, you need to be suspicious, because antibodies is also, there is something wrong, like if you use them for them.
So I think the most important thing to be explained when we are speaking about vaccination, it is what is an antibody. In theory, it's a protein which is specific to another protein. So with key and lock, it can find the enemy, bind it, neutralize it, take it out. But in reality, there is no key lock function. This you can only cause in very specific laboratory condition, where then when only a few proteins are present, and this does only work in the test tube. This is a self-deception, what's going on, you know. And in reality, antibodies are globulines, which are globular proteins. And when they are in an area of the body where it's acid, that means there's something intoxication going on, lack of industry, insurance that you need repair a vessel or a wound building, you know, then they are losing their globular structure, and they get really flat and can connect themselves with other proteins, with their sulfur groups, and so they bind everything together. And this is how wound healing occurs. And this is also when new vessels are built up. The globulins are the source of proteins that new structures in our body are built, and the damaged ones are replaced. So any way you put fire, you hurt yourself mechanically, you inject in a muscle water, which is destroying the muscle or to the, you know, mechanically, then immediately you have a rise of globulins. And what they say, globulin type EGMA, you know, G, E, you know, these are only certain different kind of sizes. And in all those studies, they say, look, when we inject the vaccine, we find a rise of globulins, antibodies type IgG, right? Immune globulin type G. And this is going to clear the spike protein. I mean, it's sure when you put the body under inflammation with a load of toxins. And I mean, it's no joking. If you put the vaccine into a vein, you would die in between 10 minutes. The load you can't survive, definitely not. In the muscle, you know, it's able, if it's not going too quick inside your body. And it goes quick if you are weak, if you have no energy, you know, if you are a child in a growing process where all the energy is needed into a stage of development, when an organ is growing, bones or whatsoever, or when your hormonal state is switching, you know, if you are a youngster, right? Then the body at this moment has no energy, so it cannot hold those toxins, so they are liberated. And the highest rate of metabolism we have in the brain, so everything in the end it's landing in the brain, right? Therefore, we have all this terrible headache and sinus thrombosis inside the brain. And this is all caused by the nanoparticles, but definitely not by the DNA or by the RNA. And the researchers fooling themselves, of course, when they are working with their cell cultures in the lab, this represents life for them. But there are such a lot of levels of self-fooling because they are using cells which are adapted for decades to work in this and that way, you know, or they are inbreeding animals with the same symptoms said to be caused by this and this. And with this, they are working, and they are not realizing the extent of self-fooling themselves. And I really recommend you and to read the book and the publications of Harold Tillman. He in the 70s, 80s, last century, he showing clearly the logical arguments from ultrastructure you know, experiments with electron microscopy of what is said the cell, and then in biochemistry he really was disproving the whole theory of cells.
Yeah,
and if you read this, then you will see, wow, even on this level we have a wrong thinking. We are organized in tissues, right? The germ layers, the outer germ layer, the ectoderm, the middle, the mesoderm, and the outer germ layer, the ectoderm. This is what life is originating from. So we have already on this level, we have misconceptions grown historically, right? And I mean, that's the way, I mean, for everybody to accept our history and not reacting in the same good and bad manner. So this, what happening in the transition of Soviet Union to Russia, there was no bloodshedding because they said, look, keep all of them. This was it. History was like it is, but we are not fighting and we are not going into revenge. And this was history. I mean, and that is one advantage attributed to Gorbachev. Well, So of course he's questioned, but I think we are in a similar situation. We cannot judge the people in charge, the virologists or the politicians, you know, for believing into this thing. This is me, myself, some 30 years ago, I was not aware of what's going on. You know, I was in this belief system, in this old. And I mean, the very sympathetic thing and very good thing in Chinese philosophy is that they're always teaching the students that what they are believing to know nowadays may be wrong or maybe not right tomorrow. And this is it. Life is a secret, and we can approach the secret. And if we stay decent and always ask and questioning ourselves, then we'll get answers from life itself, you know. And this is a completely different attitude. And so I hope that, and I'm convinced for given reasons, that the transition from the old thinking of medicine to the new understanding, or I would say the deeper understanding, the transition is going in a way without violence, you know, at least visible violence, like the Soviet Union was transformed into Russia or independent countries. So we should not look back in anger, right? But when we look back, then only to understand better why we were believing those things and where is the way out. And this is in the end the important work you are doing, me are doing, and this is our duty as a human being and as a scientist, of course, as well.
Yes, thank you, Stefan. I also think that it is very important to do this work that we are doing, and you are doing especially. I did a video, actually, I don't know if you saw this video about your control experiments about the first phase. That was extremely popular. We even translated this video to 9 languages. So we translated to 9 languages. So where I told about what you did with the tissue culture, because I was so amazed when I saw the results, and of course I knew this will happen, but like seeing them was amazing. So I did this video where I explained everything about Ender, so that gave the context so people understand the meaning of these experiments, and it was so successful. So even people that big like speakers or influencers that talk about politics and things not related, but they have huge audience. They are talking about your experiments now in Russia. I was very happy about it. And also we translated to Italian, and it was also very popular in Italian, because I speak Italian, so I translated it.
Yes.
Yeah. So
wonderful.
Yes, and I think it is very important to, if we want to see this revolution and to live in a better world, that we do this. And like what I tell to people that help me in what I do, and people that want to share, I tell them that you need to share this information. You should not care about what people, if people agree with you. You just need to add this information into their information field, common information field, because this information is just too little now. We need to add more. And what we are doing, we are adding. We're not fighting, not arguing, like they say, oh, like you are stupid or something like this. But it's okay. It's completely okay. You need just to add. That's what you should do. And I think it's very successful, because if people see, like from here, they hear that the proof for the virus is someone is doubting it. At least they see that someone is doubting. Then they see from there. Then they see from there. So, and then they start to think about it. So they start to think, and eventually they will face the moment that they will have to really go there. They will have, because they will see many people doing this. So I think that this is very important. Also, what I wanted to really ask you, because since I started to talk about again the genetics, and also I read, I saw this video about Harold Hillman, And where he explained, like he saw that actually what we think cell is, it's not this at all. It's it has does not have all of this stuff. It's just a byproduct of electron microscopy and the stain. And I was amazed. And so my question was, is it possible to genetically modify something? Is it a possibility? Like with this vaccine, we understand, but what is CRISPR and things like this? I was asked a lot about the gene therapies, like for kids, when they have muscle atrophy and they get better. But I also did not find any good science to confirm that they actually feel better. What are your thoughts about this?
Thank you for this central and very important question. I mean, when the concept of a gene and genetic material it's overthrown, then of course what's going on. And the point is easy. Either we explain life in pure materialistic manner, we are in a dead end, or we open ourselves that there is a spirit, there is consciousness acting on life, or even materializing the life. Because when you see the tabella work of Hamer's finding, when you see the germ layers and all the organs belonging to one germ layer, all the digestion tract, all, skin, sensoric organs, etc. And then you see all what may happen there, what kind of biological conflicts acting there, what is leading to an ulceration or to tumor, or in the healing process, the reversation. When I saw this and I transferred it to its meaning, into its positive content, what kind of function had the skin on the outside to protect, to keep away, inside to hold, to keep the contact, and so it's even with the organs inside the body we don't see. Then I realized, hey man, Hammer found the building map of the human being. We are all parts that a consciousness is materializing itself, and this is a completely new kind of thinking. And therefore, life becomes visible in processes on various stages. And the first thing what becomes visible for us is nucleic acid. It's RNA in all its variation, and which is fitting into the metabolism, and it's helpful. It stays longer, and therefore it's transcribed into DNA. So it's completely different. It's not the genetic inheritance, it's the DNA and the messenger, it's the RNA and doing something in the body. No. The RNA, it's constantly produced out of the nothing, even without a pre-existing text, pre-existing sequences. Everything comes into existence and goes. I mean, you have your Vasily Grossman, who took over the idea of Heraclite, Pantare. And this is what we see in life on all levels. And therefore, when they are saying genetic engineering works, what they are not saying in public, they all did in the field of plants or animals. They did a highly inbreeding of several plants and animals, and the result of the highly inbreeding, this they presented us as the result of genetic material. They only added then a genetic material which should be responsible for this and that enzyme or protein in order to be able to patent it. But this is a fact, a given fact, that this was result of typical breeding. Like we do in all history, we are breeding plants, we are breeding animals. And only then a genetic material was added to say, look, this is genetic material, but it doesn't work. And it's not stable. The body is losing this, what it's not needed immediately. Even if you think, oh, insulin, it's genetically engineered, then so look into the details. This is only a protein of 52 building blocks, amino acids. And still it's not able that a bacterium or yeast is producing insulin. This is not true. They are adding wrong molecules inside, then how it's three-dimensional form. This has to be done all in chemical steps in the test tubes, This is just in order to produce cheaper, because to isolate it from the pancreas of pigs or of cows, that would be too expensive. And so they did it genetical engineering, but it's more impure than the insulin of pigs or of cows. That's a matter of fact. And but still, all people are believing in this concept. So this is just not true, and it never worked. When you are going into the literature, you see no gene therapy never materialized, never ever, because the gene theory is falsified, the cellular theory is falsified, and the theory of disease is falsified as well. This is different. This is completely different. On the other side, we have to say that I think as genetic sequencing is going to be cheaper and cheaper and quicker, what we can achieve with this, we can really in future definitely see what kind of enzymes your body is producing at the moment and what enzymes not. Because as I said, if we are not drinking alcohol for half a year, we are losing 50 building blocks called genes for some enzymes we need in the metabolism of alcohol. But the funny thing is, if you start to drink again, of course, a half glass of wine would make you fall down, puts you out of consciousness. You have to start again. But then your metabolism is learning to use alcohol and is building all these dozens and dozens of enzymes needed to cope with alcohol. And so it's with every toxin. It's very well known. You take bacteria, giving them antibiotics in a low concentration so they would not die, and you increase. And then you increase even more to a very toxic concentration where all bacteria would immediately die. But if you start slow, they learn to cope with those antibiotics. And they learn to digest the antibiotic, and you even are able to reduce the normal nutrition of your bacterial cell culture. And then if you immediately take out the antibiotic and give immediately the nutrition, all the bacteria are dying. They even need some days and weeks in order to learn to use their nutrition they used earlier. It takes time. And this is a way how life adapts to everything. This is happening on the basis of RNA, but this is not stored as information. So to end this argument, the numbers of genes in humans is constantly reduced. In 2000, it was 100,000 genes. Then they reduced it to 50, then to 30,000, then to 20,000. Now we have 10,000 genes. Even a rat has 5 times more, and the wheat they made bread out have 10 times more in their calculation. So you see how ridiculous is it from another perspective. And the other question, what is CRISPR? I mean, it's just an enzyme which is able to digest and cut nucleic acids. And most of those enzymes have a strand of nucleic acid inside where they bind to a certain structure, a certain part. But you can even change this and add another strand inside the enzyme so it will bind more there. But this is all theory. And still, when they say, now we can do specific genetic engineering, it never ever is going to materialize, because we are not driven by a book of life. We are driven by a field, a consciousness, a field of consciousness where the individual and every part of the individual has the information about his function. And this is driving the thing. And this needs to be healed when this is damaged. And every part of a word can be really touched. Every part of the body can be touched by a word and get ill. You can lose your bones. You are not worth anything. You cannot do this and that. You are worthless, or you get an anger. You cannot get rid, and you produce this part of your intestine where you experience the anger, that you are going to form a tumor. And very quickly, the tumor is included in your metabolism. You have arteries, you have veins, you have nerves. It's just an additional organ function what is going on there. But it's not the end of the world. And it's a logic behind to keep life going on. And that's life on all levels. You see no fight. You see it between animals, and you see it when there is starvation, when there is a lack of energy, or whatsoever. A lack, this is creating aggression and fight. But when we have everything else, there is always harmony. And as a human being, we are able to create the conditions that there is no lack for everybody on this planet. And this is in the end, the goal of my work, that every human being, when there is a catastrophe going on, you know, no sun for years because volcanism or whatsoever, that he knows that everybody else is on its way already to help them, that nobody must flee as well. And this is a kind of international solidarity, which is able to grow when we finally understand our own biology, ourselves, that there is no good and bad, and that I'm able to judge everybody else. And this is why I'm so behind the thing to make it known what harm or found. And I'm working, that's my job, to realize a brain scanning technique of the brain, not using X-ray, but using low amounts of currency, which works already perfectly to look through the living lung with this technique. And this I try to adapt to the brain. And as an intermediate step, I'm experimenting at the moment with MRT, magnetic resonance tomography, and to visualize the signals formerly only to be seen in X-ray. So this is my thing, and what I do to make this information attractive. So, you know, and it works. And I'm so happy that you are young and doing it, because most likely with the older people, you know, so, you know, you change when you're reaching the young people. It always been like this, you know, because a lot of older people, my age or older, you know, they are so much in their things, you know, with their personal, you know, obligations and their job and so on. They have not the possibility to look right and left, having a family, hunting for money to be able to afford a nice housing, car, transportation, holidays, etc. Right? They have not the luxury to be open to do what they want. A lot of people are not. And so this is especially the youngsters, when they get the result on the handy, showing their brain the signals and saying, look, we have a fever of 39 degrees, but it won't rise. It comes from this part of the brain, and the cause is this and this. Or you're losing here, or you are autistic, or you are manic, your sexuality is not functioning, or too much, too less, and all these things, you know. If this is saying it to you, everybody wants to know the real biology. And this is what it's on its way already. So I really ask you to get contact with people in Russia, and they are, you know, teaching and working in the therapeutic field with the finding of harmers, you know. And what I may offer to you, especially for youngsters and therapists, the same thing what I did yesterday for the first time in my life. I'm used to speak with people, and having no people around me, I'm not so good in speaking, and you know, because it's just all the interaction, it's blocked. But I can reach people with this. And yesterday I had for the first time a lecture in front of students. There's a German students organization, students standing up, and the feedback, it's good. Most of them understood the message and are interested starting to read. And so this is what I would be happy if you would take it up. We could do lectures. I would even could do seminars showing the slides and some text which should be translated, you know, to have it already in Russian. I could send it to you. So, but you have already the slide in Russian, and I would really be happy to do this, because when the Russian soul is waking up, it's waking up, and when the Russian soul is moving, it's moving. That's definitely, and that's for sure.
Yes, Stefan, it's yes, we will do it. I already say we will do it. I already agree. It's amazing and it's very important. We need to educate people about this, because it's that's what people need. They need to learn about new German medicine, and they need to as soon as possible. That's what they need to do. So
well, we can't educate. That's the wrong
yes,
I think attitude. But we can offer the information so that they are able to educate themselves. Okay, yes. But it's sure what we mean. Yes, so I would be more than happy when we are going to plan this, and this is the advantage of the internet.
Yes, of course. So Thank you, Stefan, so much for your time. I was extremely happy. I was very nervous. I can tell. That's why I maybe looked a little bit strange, but for the first time, I was so nervous because I was waiting for talking with you for a very long time. And I'm extremely happy. Thank you for everything you do. It's you are a hero.
No.
You don't like to be told this, but that's what I think. And
look, if you look around, everybody doing his job or her job in an appropriate way. Every mother loving the children, every father loving the children, every father dedicated with his job and with his thing. And this is the majority. Therefore, the things are running. Therefore, the things are working because the majority is clearly minded. They have a strong mind, they have a strong heart, and we should not put somebody higher or not. I had a lot of luck, and I mean, my life, you know, it's so nice. It's the biggest richness you can have. It's a deeper understanding of life, not having fear, you know. And this is just wonderful. I mean, so I'm honored. And please don't exaggerate in future on this, because I feel that I'm doing my normal job, that every man who is doing his handcraft, who is doing his job in a regular way, it does not matter what kind. The one doing it with love, with dedication, with responsibility for himself, the family, and for everything. This is the same thing. And we are there on one level. And thanks God to Dean, because he's working in this field for 20 years and not giving up, you know. And thanks God we came together. And this is why we are speaking now, because I have too many people asking me to talk to me, and he's checking the people, and only the one where you know, the understanding brain and heart comes together, with them we are speaking, not the one showing up and you know, the internet heroes. I have 100,000 followers or things like this. No, it's always the quality of the humans doing this, because this is how it radiates, you know, not showing off and not exaggerate, but doing it like you are doing it. And I'm pleased that I may serve you and your country. And this is my job as a scientist, what I have to do. And everybody has to expect this from me, because I was paid 10 years as a researcher by the public. And I can tell you it was expensive, right? And so now it's the time that the public paid this, get the feedback. I mean, that's normal, right? Okay.
Okay. So I think it's time to finish, because I already took so much of your time. So Dean and
it's a pleasure.
Stefan, thank you so much. Thank you for accepting my request. And I'm I'm already ready to collaborate. Just tell me more information and everything, and we will do what is necessary. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dean.
I want to say one thing. I think it was really fantastic and wonderful that you, as a woman, came together with Stefan, because this is the yin and yang, what we need. Sorry for the noise here. It's really, we have a thunderstorm and flashes of lightning. That's why my dogs were excited too. But I think we should really do a sequel of this, and because you asked so many good questions and you summarize what Stefan says, and you put it together in words that people can understand. And so this was really, really good. Thank you.
Okay, yes, yes, of course, that sounds very good. That sounds great.
It is good. You are good.
Okay, okay, thank you so much, Dean and Stefan. Okay, see you soon, and message me about everything you said about what we can do. Yeah, okay, thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All the best.
Bye.
Bye-bye. See you soon.
See you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.